Most of the stuff that we do, even though it's illegal, and violates various trespass rules or other minor laws, is not a big threat, and we can pull it off if the police know about it. So, and often they don't even want to stop us. One of the first times I was arrested was in the medical marijuana protest during the Ashcroft era, and we had planned to chain ourselves to the Department of Justice doors protesting Ashcroft's attack on medical marijuana, even though states had legalized it. And so we all had pictures of a patient on our chest, and we had lock boxes that we were going to lock ourselves in the doors, and all these plans. And after it was over, one of the cops started getting friendly, and he was telling me how they actually knew about what we were up to. And he even said, we even knew when you guys had car troubles that morning that you were going to be late. And we were actually out in the park practicing, jumping out of the back of this car with the lock boxes and chaining ourselves, and so we were in the park just practicing that because it was kind of clumsy. And we saw a van with an antenna on it kind of up a half block away. And we noticed it, and then when we got up and left, we actually saw the van make a U-turn and follow us. So they were on us. But the interesting thing is they let us do it. So so even if they infiltrate, it doesn't mean they're going to stop you. And then the infiltrator we turned out, we figured out there's an African American college-age woman who came to our last planning meeting with a hat covering her face a little bit. And of course, all these white progressives, oh wow, black woman, man, 2 for 1, holy cow, this is great. We're finally getting diverse. But it turned out she was actually an infiltrator, and she relayed the information. They did follow us, but I said they let us do it. So first off, don't get paranoid. What we're doing, they don't want to expose themselves for some things, and it's often better to let us have our protest, make our point, get our pictures, arrest us, and then we all go home after we go to jail. And the other thing about infiltration is very hard to tell. I told you about the undercover narcs, how professional they were, and how co-chaired the Mayo campaign. These people are pretty good at this. So it's often very hard to tell. And it's very hard to tell sometimes who's just a troubled personality versus an infiltrator. So don't make accusations. Making accusations just creates paranoia and conflict. You're adding to their ability to undermine us. And don't make accusations, but work around it as best you can. And unless you have real proof. Now, if you have real proof, an accusation then is good to expose it. We've seen that work before too, where we have pictures of a undercover cop who ends up throwing a punch at a police officer or throwing something at a police car. And then you later on see him meeting with the police, and you can see in the picture he has the same police boots on when he's infiltrating and the same police boots on when he's with the police, and he's the same guy. And so exposing that, I think if you can really prove it, but if you can't prove it, don't go there. It's more counterproductive than productive. And we have to recognize that bad behavior is not always infiltration. There is a diversity of tactics, and people have different views on what's effective and what's not effective. And I think that's the way I like to frame the debate, not violence versus non-violence, or property damage versus non-property damage. What's working? What can work? If you frame the debate that way, I think you have a much better discussion among your group about where you're going. If you know what your strategy is, your goals and tactics, then makes sense. And so I think a discussion about why you want to do violence or why you want to do property damage, if someone brings that approach up, whether they're infiltrators or not, is it effective? That's the question. And you have to debate that, and I think that's a useful debate to have sometimes. The security culture. Something to be very careful of, but if you're going to do it, be open about it. Let everyone in the project or the campaign or the event know that you're going to use security culture for part of this planning, and so people shouldn't be offended by that's being done, and explain the reasons why, that you're not going to tell everybody everything. There are some parts of the event that we public about a lot, but there's some parts of the event that we can't be public about because then they can stop us. I remember we did a camp in Washington, to Stop the TPP camp. It was a training and planning encampment, and we had planned to take over the U.S. Trade Representative building, which is right across the street from the White House. And every half block there's a little police substation. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very heavily policed area. Mm-hmm. And so we had a plan to take over the building, drop massive banners to expose this is 4 or 5 years ago, expose their secret trade agreement, by putting it all over their building and saying, this is where the trade agreement is being negotiated. And we had like a 20 by 40 banner, a 10 by 30 banner, 2 5 by 20 banners. We just covered the whole building. And we were going to do it at midday, lunch hour. And we decided to pick the place because at the time the USTR building was being fixed and they had scaffolding along the side. And so we were all prepared. There were workers. We were prepared to deal with the workers. We did a last scout the morning of, and the workers were off that day, which was like, wow, what a blessing. This is like an invitation. And during the encampment training and planning process, there were people who came in who were suspicious. And if we don't know people who come into our camps, we talk to them. We want to see why they're there, what's motivating them, what they want to accomplish. And sometimes if you get into that kind of discussion, it becomes pretty evident. And so even though you don't have to make an accusation, like one person came in and Margaret Flowers, who's a doctor and a single payer activist, interviewed him, and she says, what is it that you care about? Oh, I really care about healthcare. Healthcare, I think, is really a big concern that we should all join the single payer, And so she said, that's an interesting TPP response. And so we decided to have him paint the train that we were going to be using as part of one of the tools that we were going to have for our takeover. And so he spent the day painting for a while, and then he left relatively quickly. But he didn't go into the room with the people who were actually doing the takeover of the building. The climbing up the scaffolding, dropping the banners, all that stuff. And I think just that little bit of, so everyone was very freely involved, keeping busy, doing lots of stuff, but a small group of about 10 to 12 people who were actually involved in that part of what was going on, that was a group we knew everybody in. That was a group that we had total confidence in who was part of it. And even people who were staying the night, working all weekend, didn't necessarily know what was going on. So I think security culture is a tool, and I think one that we should use, but again, cautiously, because we don't want to create paranoia. And the nothing to hide approach should be the first tactic, I think. We have nothing to hide. What we're doing is right. We're on the right side of this issue. We're going to do the right thing. And that no one's going to get hurt. No property damage, not a big problem. So let's just be open about it and invite people to it. And so when you know their tactics, it really helps. You know they want to divide us. We know they want to take over our social media. We know they want to put out false stories. If you start to know that stuff, it makes it easier. Now, sometimes it comes to a point where a movement gets so polluted by infiltrators who create division and chaos among the group that you have to just leave and start over. I mean, we are not there for an organization. We're not there for a particular protest. This is a long-term effort of change. And so it's okay to say, that's just not working anymore. Let's leave it and start something new. And so we've had to do that, at times. And that's something that's happened, again, we know people involved in other movements in other decades who've gone through that and walked away as well. At a certain point, you just got to face it and start fresh. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so don't feel attached to a particular organization or a particular tactical activity. So that's the situation we face. And that's how we've faced it. I look forward to hearing other people's experiences, because I know that this is not what we've experienced is common, and I'm sure other people have had experience that will help us all better deal with this very difficult and challenging problem. Thank you all very much.